Hey, welcome back to the 24th floor. In the past few weeks, Ole Miss have completely changed the course of their season, but it's still a very tough road to the SEC championship game. A win over Florida this Saturday and a victory in the Egg Bowl 6 days later could secure a 10-2 finish and almost certainly secure them a spot in the college football playoffs. Florida, fresh off a 27-16 upset of LSU last week, has regained momentum and won't make it easy for the Rebels, especially in Gainesville. Kickoff set for 11 a.m. And whenever I think of this game, I've been thinking about it all season, is just the talks around Lane Kiffin and what he's going to do and whether Gainesville are trying to steal him. And that's kind of always in the back of my mind. I feel like Florida this week are like, yeah, we're going to prove that you want to come and play here.
I feel like Lane Kiffin's personality just kind of feels like it so matches what Ole Miss does, though.
His personality is Ole Miss. Ole Miss is
they've adopted his personality.
Yes,
Maybe that's a good point. Maybe that's a good point. Yeah, I'm excited for this matchup because we know what the implications potentially are, right, for this Ole Miss team. They went out, they put themselves in a very good conversation for the college football playoff. Obviously, Florida is nothing to sneeze at. They not having the best season, but they got DJ Lagway back. Their starting quarterback, who's just a freshman, by the way, but they got a big win over LSU last week, 226 yards. He had Elijah Badger. Him and the connection between Elijah Badger was cooking. Badger had 130 yards and a touchdown, I think, and their best receiver is really DK. So I'm really interested to see what that Ole Miss defense, which we saw absolutely dominate Georgia, will do against this Florida offense that we feel like it has been pretty good so far this season. I am really interested to see what Lane Kiffin cooks up for this one.
Well, and you think, like, obviously LSU beat Ole Miss and now Florida's beating LSU, but when LSU beat Ole Miss, it was a very different time, I would say, for the Rebels. Like, they've come a long way since then. And obviously, also, it was in Death Valley, which has a big outcome on the game.
This is in the swamp.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. But, like, the game's
Pull it out.
coming up.
You're
pulling out all the stops today. We've seen
I'm
bars,
saying.
Oh, you're on a roll, buddy.
We've seen the core threads. We've seen everything today. But I think it's a tough environment to play in, and Ole Miss know that all too well because they've played in tough environments, and those are the games they've lost this season.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, Ole Miss is a much better team, but Florida is much better than 5-5, and you saw
talent-wise for sure.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, Lagway, and then you saw their connection with Badger last week. Like, that was really impressive. And you said, like, he's their second receiver. He's really their third guy on the stat list. It's DK is their main guy. So you've got that potential, and Ole Miss is overall deep in their entire defense. And I wouldn't even say, I mean, it's hard for me to even say that their secondary is their weak spot because two of their quarterbacks are tied for the most pass breakups in the country, and they're going up against a young quarterback. So, yeah, Ole Miss should feast in this game, and they should win by about 20. But, Avery, you and I were talking about it earlier this week. Trap game.
What'd I say?
Trap game potential.
I didn't say that. You said that.
No, I said you don't think it's a trap game, where I think it's got a little. You can kind of smell it.
To me, it is not a trap game because I think they really understand the implications of what is needed. To me, a trap game means you're looking at the opponent after whoever you're playing this week, and the opponent after Florida is Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, which there's a rivalry aspect to that. But Ole Miss is coming out of a bye week this week. I don't think they're going to have any kind of notion of, oh, well, we should just wipe the floor with Florida and Mississippi State and then we're at the playoff. Like, I think they are in a mentality where they know they've got to earn it. They know they've gotten the biggest win that they're really going to need in terms of any kind of resume and beating Georgia. They know they handled business these last 2 weeks of the season. They're fine. To me, that doesn't really meet the standard for a trap game. But I can see what you're trying to say. I don't agree.
I also agree with Avery on this one. Sorry, Caleb.
Of course you
but
do,
what do you mean? I never agree with him.
Yeah, listen.
That's my twin in
all
over
I'm
here.
saying,
You know
Avery,
what I'm
is
saying?
I haven't heard her say anything bad about Ole Miss this episode. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what I'm going to say is that when they had that LSU loss, they knew from that moment on, we have to win out if we're going to go to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And they've treated it like every game is a playoff game. And I think the concerning thing to me heading into this game is if Florida was last week, immediately after that Georgia win, because you kind of have the carryover of like, we got the biggest win, we beat number 2 Georgia or whatever they were ranked at the time, the biggest win in Ole Miss's like recent history, especially at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and you carry all that into the game. But they've had a week to get over that. And they got over it now, and now it's all attention on Florida and making sure they secure that spot in the playoffs, because that's all they've wanted since the season began. Was their goal was the playoffs. It looked like it had disappeared, or there was a very, very slim hope, and they've been able to resurrect it. They're not going to let that go away. very easily at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will go with the definition. I'll say it could have been a hangover game more than a whatever game you said.
Trap game.
Sorry.
Trap game. Don't disregard the term.
I'm sorry.
The last thing I'll say is that yes, the bye week is good, but I feel like those players really wanted to get back and play another game. You're in form. Jackson Dart is the only one that probably was like, let's,
A little gimpy after that
Well,
one.
and Trey Harris too. He's had
Trey
an
Harris
extra
too.
week.
We could see his return this week, and he could get to 1,000 yards, which he most likely will because he's like 15 yards off of it. At the same time, those players are sitting there. They've got probably some of them pieces like we have of the field goal post. Thinking about, dreaming about that Georgia win. Meanwhile, Georgia's moved on, did what they needed to do versus Tennessee. Lane's going to be sitting there and saying, don't be complacent, don't be complacent. He's probably had to get on to some people, like a lot of coaches do during a bye week. But there is a little bit of that hangover still left from Georgia. And I can't think, I looked and looked and looked. I can't remember the last time Ole Miss has won back-to-back big games. And this is a huge game for them. I don't care if Florida's 5-5. This is a big game against an SEC opponent. And in Ole Miss's recent history, it's been a while since they've been able to beat a big ranked team like Georgia and then go out and perform against a good team the next week.
Yeah, they've already stubbed their toe a couple times this year, most notably the Kentucky game. So they know they don't really have any room for error. They cannot lose either of these last two games. They take themselves out of potential a SEC championship game spot. It is a slim chance, but it is there. Give me the SEC standings. Let's talk about it real quick. Texas still there at the top, 5-1 in the conference. Texas A&M right there with them, which we're still kind of shocked by, quite honestly, but it is what it is at this stage of the game. UGA, they're at third. Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, all right there at 4-2, and then you got South Carolina, who have 3 SEC losses. They have completed their game slate as far as the SEC schedule is concerned, but those SEC standings can also potentially have a little bit of a college football playoff ranking perspective. So here are your college football playoffs right now. The Big Ten owns the top 5 spots with 4 of the top 5 teams. You have the SEC dominating slots 6 through 12. You got Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, and then Boise State rounding out those top 12. So what we've had to kind of get into today is like, how many SEC teams are going to be in this conversation for the college football playoff? It has been a point of contention, especially on social media this week. Everybody has their agenda. Everybody has, well, this is why my team should be in there, and your team shouldn't, and the Big Ten don't pass the smell test and everything else. But we'll find out some things here in the next week or two. And Ole Miss still alive, potentially, to get an automatic bid.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, can we bring up those SEC standings again, if it's not too hard, just so we can kind of talk you through how it's feasible
South
for Ole
Carolina's
Miss.
so small. That's funny to me.
Shout out to Sergio getting those standings back up.
Yeah, appreciate
big
that.
Sergio.
How, Caleb, is it possible for Ole Miss to make the SEC game? Because obviously it's not a shoo-in. They have to win these last 2 games, definitely, if there's a chance. But then how else do they make it happen?
I'll preface this with these are like 1 in 100 chances right here. Auburn have to win out, which means they have to beat Alabama. Alabama have to beat OU. That's probably going to happen. Kentucky, who beat Ole Miss, have to beat Texas. And then Vanderbilt, your boy with Vandy, have to beat
Pavia.
Yep, Pavia have to beat UT, which UT is UT. Texas is not UT. Notice I said Texas. University of Tennessee is UT, just for the record.
I would like to preface that Diego Pavia is my boy because I covered him for 2 years,
Right,
and that is
right.
the only reason,
Right,
BT
right.
Dubs. But yes,
Yeah.
I'm happy for Vandy. They're doing well. Good to see-
Professionally, your boy.
Good,
Yeah,
professionally, my boy. That's a good way of putting it. Hard task for them to get to the SEC championship game. At the end of the day, they just got to win these 2 games, and then whatever happens around it happens around it. Also, if they win these 2 games, they go into the college football playoffs. Obviously, the dream, right, would be to go to the SEC title game, win that, go to the playoffs, win the national championship. That's the dream for any team, right, at this point.
But what's interesting is Lane Kiffin has kind of said, like, he's talked with some coaches around the league, and some of them are kind of, it's not that they don't want to win an SEC championship. Of course they want to win an SEC championship, but some of them are kind of like ducking the
It's an extra
SEC
game that
championship
you gotta
game
get through?
because the implications if you lose may not be as good as the reward if you win. Certainly if you win, you get the automatic bid into the college football playoff. You get the first round bye and everything like that. But if you lose, especially because pretty much all the teams that are going to be in the SEC championship game, with the exception of Texas, are going to have 2 losses. So then you're talking about being a 3-loss team potentially. You're talking about possibly missing a chance at the college football playoff. Now, do I think that the SEC runner-up shouldn't be in the college football playoff? No, I'm not saying that. But the potential implications of that being a possibility, I can see why some teams are like, if we don't make it to the SEC championship game this year of all years, like I might be okay with it.
Well, I think if you're in the playoff picture before the SEC championship game comes around, you're going to still be in the playoffs. But if you're Georgia, who potentially needs the SEC championship win to get into the playoffs, then yes, that loss is really painful and you probably then won't make it. But if you're Ole Miss and you somehow make it into the SEC championship game, you're already in the playoff picture. You're going to the playoffs pretty certainly if you win these next 2 games.
67%. Yeah.
Okay, it's more than 50%. It's pretty certainly.
Right, that's why I was agreeing with you. You had it up there at 90. I'm just bringing it to 67. We're just being a realist.
Round it up to 70, you know.
Never rounding up to 70.
But that's according to ESPN. So there's plenty other, brackets out there. But if you're going into the SEC championship game and you're not winning that, but you're already a 67% chance of making the playoffs, then I think you're still going to go, even if you lose the SEC championship game. But it is an interesting point. There's a lot that goes into this. What I think is my biggest takeaway from all of this is that the SEC is the best conference. There's no question right now. If you have 6 teams right there that could all make the SEC championship game, depending on how these next 3 games go, that says it all to you right there.
Yeah, and Lane Kiffin tweeted about it this week, talking about a coach somewhere out there was saying that maybe the SEC is not the most difficult conference in the nation. Maybe that some of the games aren't as hard to win. And Lane said, go and play at 100 Sanford Drive and try to beat Georgia, which is where they play, 100 Sanford Drive. And you'll find out real quick how difficult the SEC is. And you can say that for multiple different campuses, including Vaught Hemingway, and where they're going to play in the swamp is a little bit different than jump around, jump around. Talk about you, Wisconsin. Talk about you, Wisconsin. Yeah, that's pretty hype. Oh, you in the overalls too?
Yeah,
it's not as hostile environment.
Listen, man, the Big Ten does own several of the top 5 slots, and I think what we're seeing is like, well, the bottom half of their conference is not as strong as really anything in the SEC. To me, none of that really matters. You got to play with who's in front of you on the schedule. Just because I didn't lose any games, I shouldn't be penalized like we're talking about with Indiana this week. This Indiana conversation, I'm sorry, we're talking about the SEC, but this Indiana conversation to me is so goofy. You got a team that is 10-0, potentially could be in the Big Ten championship game if they continue to win out. And they have an opportunity, as long as they beat Ohio State, there can't be any questions. To me, I still think there can be questions. I'm potentially 11-1, and I'm probably a top 10 to 15 team, and I'm not going to be in the college football playoff. I just think that's a ridiculous argument, and I understand for an Indiana to be in there, you got to leave out Tennessee, or an Ole Miss potentially, or some one of those other teams. But at the end of the day, we expanded the college football playoff to 12 teams because we wanted to see more teams in there. When I say more teams, I didn't say more SEC teams. We meant more teams. And for Indiana to be having a crazy historic season, I mean, they were bottom of the barrel for the longest time. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, if they don't beat Ohio State, well, they proved our point. They didn't deserve to be in the conversation. It's goofy, bro. It's goofy. Play the games that are in front of you, and if you win out, you deserve to be in the spot. Now, what I will say is, we had TCU in a similar spot last year, right? Or last year before? A couple years ago. TCU plays Georgia, right? And they get absolutely smacked. And we're like, all right, yeah, maybe we were right. We shouldn't have put TCU in there. They earned their way into the spot. Just because they came up short in that moment, once they got there, doesn't mean they don't deserve to be in the moment because they earned their way there. And I don't want to hear any of the boo-hoo crying if somebody gets left out of the SEC. There's going to be plenty of teams and plenty of opportunities, and they're going to probably boo-hoo their way into expanding again if in the event somebody that they feel deserves to get put in gets left out.
The committee's probably going to be 25 people large at this point.
Yeah,
the committee is going to be even bigger. I can kind of sum up that argument, SEC versus Big Ten, in just 2 matchups right here.
Give me Army.
It looks like no Army talk. It looks like if the playoffs started today, Ole Miss would play Alabama. Mm-hmm. What does that line look like? Alabama's probably favored by 2.5 or so, I would say.
Maybe more.
Maybe more.
I don't bet like you bet.
Georgia don't call me out for betting. I'm positive for the season. I've lost no money this season, by the way.
That's what every bettor says.
Avery said it like I asked him for money before the episode. All right. If Georgia would end up playing Notre Dame or Penn State, Georgia's going to be favored by 12 points against either of those schools. Maybe more like 8 against Penn State. That's just what I assume is going to happen. Against Notre Dame, it's probably going to be 12 points. And then you have Ole Miss and Alabama that are higher seeds, that are lower seeds, at 8 and 9, and that's going to be the tightest matchup line-wise. That pretty much sums it up for me.
But at the end of the day, you got to line up and play the games.
I agree.
And what we've seen this year, especially when we're talking about some of these teams that do have 2 losses in the SEC. Alabama gets beat by Vandy. If they don't lose that game, they're in the conversation. If Ole Miss doesn't lose to Kentucky, they're in the SEC in the conversation for the SEC championship game, and we're not having any of these. Well, what if they get left out? Well, you should have lost.
Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you're the best team, you're going to win the whole thing. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like the high school football playoffs, don't you think?
High school football playoffs, indeed. We are in the 3rd round.